video is going to explain how to calculate a correlation coefficient. Now, you've been taught about scatter diagrams at some point in the past, and hopefully you'll know that some scatter diagrams have no correlation. There's no pattern in the dots. Some have positive correlation, and that's got a positive gradient, thinking back to your straight line graphs, and some have a negative gradient, and that's negative correlation. Now, it is possible to actually calculate a number that tells you how correlated a scatter diagram is. There's two of these numbers. One is Pearson's and the other is Spearman's. This video is going to explain Pearson's. Now, if you've got no correlation, Pearson's correlation coefficient, which is normally called R, equals 0. If you have perfect positive correlation, that is, the lines or points all line up exactly, then R would equal 1. And if you've got perfect negative correlation, then R would equal negative 1. The actual value of R could be anywhere in between 1 and minus 1. So, for example, minus 0.8 would be pretty strong negative correlation. 0.1 would be very weak positive correlation. So, enough of that, let's get on and actually calculate a correlation coefficient. Now, I've hidden the formula underneath this because it's a really monstrous formula, but it's not so bad once you actually get your head around it. The first thing we're going to need to do is work out our mean values. So, we've got two variables here, and to make it nice and straightforward for us, we're going to give them names x and y. So my pocket money variable is going to be variable x, and my test score is going to be y. And we're going to see, is there a connection, is there correlation between pocket money and test score? So first of all, I need to calculate my means. Now, the mean, that's adding them up and dividing by how many they are, is often called x bar. So, on my calculator, I'm going to do 20 plus 15 plus 8 divided by 3, which gets me 14.3. Nice, simple calculation. Okay, my mean for my y variable, y bar, is 80 plus 47 plus 40 divided by 3, which gets me, sorry, calculate a moment there, divided by 3, gets me 55.7. So there's my means. Now, what next? Well, let's have a look at the formula, because it is, as I say, a bit of a monster. Now, we've got to be able to put all the numbers into this formula, we need to have a few more columns in our table. So we've got the x and the y column. We need the x, y column. There we go. That's the one we need. So, what next? We also need, so the xy column comes from this bit of the formula. We've already got the x column, we've already got the y column, there's the x column, there's the y column, and finally we need the x squared and the y squared column. So there's the x squared column, and there's the y squared column. So you add those on to the end of your table. Now, the xy column, so 20 times 80, 2 times 8 is 16, put 2 noughts on. Then we're going to do the 15 times the 47, which gets us 705. And then finally the 8 times 40, which gets us 320. And while we're at it, we're going to add up those numbers. So 320 plus 705 plus 1600 comes to 2625. Okay, now the x squared column. So 20 squared is 400. 15 squared is 225. And 8 squared is 64. And we add those up. So we go 400 and we add 225 and we add 64, and that comes out at 689. And now the y squared column, so we've got 80 squared, which is 6,400. 47 squared, which comes out at 2,209. And finally the 40 squared, which comes out at 1,600. And we add those together, and that comes to 10209. Okay, we'll need to add up the x's, so we've got 80 plus 40, which is 120, plus 47, which is 167, and 35 and 8, which gets us to 43. Okay, so adding a few extra columns on, and now we've just got to stuff all of these numbers into that monstrous formula, which, as I say, isn't as bad as it looks. So let's just move the formula out of the way. If I can do that, is it going to let me do it? I better unlock it, hadn't I? Let's try again. There we go. There's the formula over there. Let's move our beware sign out of the way. And now let's start putting numbers in. So, on the top, first of all, we have got, let's just delete some of these. And finally that one. Okay, so let's do it bit by bit. Let's do the top first. So we've got the sum of x, y. So that's 2625. So 2625. And then we're going to subtract the sum of x, which is 43, multiplied, so that bit, multiplied by the sum of y, which is 167, divided by n, which is 3, because there's 3 data items. So that's the top done. Now the bottom, we've got the square root sign. So first of all, we're going to have the sum of x squared, which is down here. So 6, 8, 9. And then we're going to subtract the sum of x, which is 43. We're going to square it, and over n. And in the second bracket, we've got the sum of y squareds, which is down here. So we've got 10209 minus the sum of y, which is 167, but we're going to square that and divide it by 3 and close our brackets, and all that's underneath the square root sign. And then we whack that into our calculator, which is, as you probably realise, a bit of a monster. So let's see, here we go. So 2625 minus, and a little fraction, 43 times 167 over 3. When you're doing this, you just need to take absolute care that you type it in exactly like it looks there. So then I've got brackets 689 minus 43 squared over 3. Close those brackets, multiply new brackets, 10209 minus 167 squared over 3. Close the brackets, and that gives me 0.89828 and some more stuff, which I'm going to round to 0.90. And now we're just going to interpret that. Well, remember, our correlation coefficient goes between 1 and -1. So this is very strong positive correlation. Now, finally, you want to relate it to the context. So this is a connection between pocket money and test score. Is there a connection? Well, that's sort of an open question, really. I mean, there's certainly correlation. Does that mean having a high test score means you get lots of pocket money? Not necessarily, because correlation doesn't imply that one thing causes the other. It just means there's a relationship between them. Does having lots of pocket money mean you get a good test score? Well, there might be a better connection in that direction. Anyway, as you can see, you just need to be careful. Fill in the table. It's quite useful to use ICT for this if you've got it. You can use the Casio calculators. They will calculate this for you in the stats mode, and I may do another video on that. Good luck with it.